Welcome back. I am here with an exciting video. I am in the studio again. I just got done with a really cold walk, so I still have my coat on. It was cold. I mean, it really dropped. I'd say it felt below freezing, but it couldn't have been. I think it's like 10 or 12 degrees out there. And it was so warm just a couple days ago. It was like 60 degrees for Christmas. Insane. But we got this awful cold spell now, and so the whole neighborhood is like frozen over. And that doesn't matter though, because I am here doing some fashion illustration, and I always love doing fashion illustration. It is one of my biggest hobbies. I'd say within my love of art, obviously there is a love for landscape and portraiture, but fashion illustration has a big part of my heart. And so tonight I'm working on more of a couture evening wear for a lady. And it's just a sketch, just silhouettes right now, but you can kind of see the beginnings of it, I hope. Is this working? Yeah. So the bodice is pretty cinched, and then there's these kind of wild flare outs with this feathered, I don't know, I think the hem would always be like a feathered sort of texture on the gown itself. Evening length, pretty long, and then you get these dramatic sort of, I don't know, I wouldn't call them shoulder pads, but they're almost like a puffed sleeve, puffed shoulder. And then her hair is just wildly whipping out, and then I'm thinking of kind of a light muslin, probably like a pearl white. In fact, I have a material, sort of like an evening wear scarf, like a larger scarf. Let me step through here. This is one of my favorite items, and it's an evening scarf that I own. Something like this where it'd be lighter, so that when you throw it in the wind, it would be easy to kind of, I don't know, float away, add a little bit of an ambiance to it. Yeah, so I'm already thinking about materials, even though I know this dress is probably never going to be made, but that's the joy of fashion illustration. You can just put your ideas on paper, and who cares if they're never going to be sewn? I mean, of course, you could always send it to, if you have a seamstress as a friend, you know, you can send it over to him or her or whoever, but it doesn't have to like exist in reality. It can exist on the paper, and it can be really fun line art. In fact, I have some other illustrations. I think I've showed you one, but it was in bad lighting, and I'd like to reintroduce you to some of the pieces I've been working on. Like I said, I got this new sketchbook, and it's really fun. It's this vertical 6x12 pad, and so this one I did show off the other night, but now you can see it in better lighting. So you get this kind of ombre effect with all this red, and I mean, if you watch the last video that we talked about Yoshitaka Amano, a lot of his thought process I'm trying to bleed into my own work, right? Of having that solid backed color, so that your figure reads as a single shape, you know? And then you can start digesting from there. So the viewer interacts with this shape at first, and then they can start digging into the details. I think I mentioned, you know, there's kind of this black lace scarf sort of wrist tie situation, I don't even know. And then there's this chic gray into a light dusty pink. And then over here, you know, kind of a bleached out hair, whiter hair, almost East European vibes. Now the one I completed today was really fun. It was kind of, I'd say it's like menswear, evening wear. No, probably not that formal. It's fun though. It's kind of this silhouette, really seductive, working on being seductive. And then I added these little polka dots with a silver marker so that when you twist it in the light, it shimmers. And the figure himself, you know, you probably could only pull off this look if you were like really lean and you had a good muscle, a good physique, because this is pretty skin tight. And I gave him this bleached out hair with yellow highlights, and then it's kind of an evening, I don't know if it's snowing or if those are stars in the background. I couldn't make up my mind. It's wild, it's a little more seductive, you know, and I like playing with that feature in art. You know, art doesn't always have to be totally tame. It can be a little more wild. So I've just been enjoying this pad. I feel like I keep Usually at this point, I would draw something that I'm really disappointed in, but it seems like during the winter, it's like I can't help but be inspired because, you know, I'm always basically just going back to my studio and drawing, you know? It's like that's all you really can do in the wintertime. So anyway, yeah, I think cultivating glamour and cultivating a taste for fashion, it doesn't have to be, you know, super refined. I don't think I take fashion really enormously seriously, but I like it, you know? And who doesn't like to look put together and look thoughtful about their garments and about the way they approach society, you know? Clothes can, I'd say, you've heard the saying, pictures, you know, tell 1,000 words. I feel like the clothes you put on your body can really, they can really speak for you even before you open your mouth. And so, I don't know, take that with a grain of salt, but I take dressing myself seriously, you know? And it's a great way to transmit some of my artistic inspiration without having to just throw out a huge essay about what I like. You know, you can just look at me and you understand what I admire. You know, clean lines, bold silhouettes, boxy shapes, things that complement my palette, you know, my physique, that sort of thing. And it's tasteful. I think everyone should, not in a hyper vain way, but they should cultivate a sort of taste for fashion and find your style. You know, it can be really fun. So, anyway, yeah, a little bit ago, I think I mentioned how I feel like several of the branches of the humanities can kind of inform one another. You know, like my love of architecture can inform the way I dress, because fashion is nothing more but a facade for the body, you know, and the lines that we introduce into the wardrobe that we wear can sometimes also correspond to maybe our taste in architecture, in the places that we inhabit, in the environments that we build for ourselves. And our environments can blend over to the way we decorate them and what we love with art, fine art. And then fine art can often influence our taste in music, in, you know, a myriad of things. And then throw in literature, throw in poetry, throw in songwriting, you know, and you get this whole symphony of arts and art practice and creativity that makes up the zeitgeist of your, you know, your creative spirit. And it's amazing, you know, we really do have to cultivate our creative spirit. So, gosh, I'm just talking so much, but you know, that's the virtue of taking those late night walks. You know, you get to think so much. It's addictive. I do want to ink this one, and I'm thinking already of dusty pinks, of maybe a lavender color. I think I want to tape off some of the page so that I can do, and this might only make sense when I've actually done it, but I'm gonna try and explain it. I'd like to tape off maybe a rectangle so that the figure is framed in this pool of color, right? So if I taped off a little bit and then did a block of color behind the figure, then she'd be propelled in front, and so she would be occupying the foreground. And I think that would be an elegant way, a clean, elegant way to just play with the idea of her coming out of the frame, you know, her approaching you as a person, almost like she's approaching you out of this dinner party, you know? And that actually might be kind of fun. Oh, I'm getting excited. In another life, I definitely, and I mean, this is still possible, but I definitely would like to inform, you know, these high-end fashion illustrators, or yeah, maybe that's something I should do. I should make a fashion line at some point. You know, if you shoot for the stars, you'll land on the moon. Someday I'll do that. I'm still working on all my paintings. It's nice to like take a break and work on something with a dry medium so that you can just like get it done quickly. And it's like, that's the virtue of a sketch, is you sketch and then it's done, and then you can move on to the next thing. And it's a good way to get a sprint exercise in creatively, at least for me. I know some people take sketching very seriously and they need to make sure it's like perfect. but I don't think that's me. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm gonna get started inking this and adding in a colored pencil. So, I will show you the progress when I get done. And in the meantime, have a good night. Wish me luck on this. And yeah, I think it'll turn out fun. I have a good feeling about this one. Anyway, thanks for sticking around. See you later.